The clock is ticking, you're running out of time. Let's hear your latest lie, 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 lie.
What is up, gang, and welcome back to another episode of Inspired By. My name's Will and I make an assortment of music under the moniker Hush Child. I've got a few questions from subscribers about how you might go about creating music around a vocal. So I asked my friend in New York, Kate Gratson, to send me over a vocal. She's got an album coming out tomorrow and you can find her details in the description below. She sent this over and it's absolutely beautiful. Check this out.
Listen close, I'll give you one more chance. Don't make me ask again. What did I say when things first began?
So I've just dragged the acapella into Ableton. That's what we're going to use as a basis for today. Let's jump into it. The first thing that I'm going to do before I even treat the vocal is just try and fit it to some kind of BPM. So I'm going to start to drag back this BPM. I haven't warped the vocal, which is really important. So this is going to move with the click. And it looks to be about in time at 85.
Listen close, I'll give you.
It's a little bit late. Let's try at 84.
Listen close, I'll give you one.
So what I'm going to do to help things along is I'm not really going to treat the vocal just yet, but I'm just going to apply a quick bit of EQ just to get out any low rumblings for now. And the second thing that I'm going to do to the vocal is just apply a tuner so I can see which notes the vocal is bouncing to, because I'm not sure what key the song is in.
Listen close, I'll give you one more chance.
A, G, F, E, D. So it could be C major, A minor. What I'm going to do is open up Scalar 2, and I've mentioned Scalar 2 on the channel before. This really helps me figure out what chord progressions and what keys I want to use. This is the A minor scale, but it also shows me that I could be in the D minor scale, F major scale, because these all have the same notes. It says 5 out of 5. So out of the 5 notes that I've played, all 5 of those match that scale. So this A triad here would actually work with the vocal, but it's kind of a little bit boring. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop this E here and put it down on the F. So we've got an F major triad.
Listen close, I'll give you one more chance.
I got lucky there. Okay, so we're going to have the F major triad here, and then we're just going to go down a step to the E minor triad, I believe. And then I don't want it to be really lame and go back up to here because it just sounds, that's really cheesy. So I want it to be slightly jazzy to match Kate's jazzy overall vibe. So I think what we'll do is we'll do an F major, E minor, and then go to the G, because then it allows us to go down a step back to that F, I think. And then we'll just do a diminished chord. I think that will work, but let's see.
Listen close, I'll give you one more chance. Don't make me ask again.
Cool. So now I'm going to bear that in mind. F major, E minor, and then G diminished, I think. Tell me in the comments my music theory is terrible. Actually, we could use scalar. Let's use scalar real quick. Oh, it's been recording the whole time. F major, E minor, G diminished. Look at this. Come on. Professional. Now what I want to do is figure out kind of like a drum track. And what we'll do is get a basic kind of groove. And then I'll replace those sounds with sounds from Splice so they sound again more in keeping, because sound selection is greatly important.
Listen close, I'll give you one more chance. Don't make me ask again. What did I say when things first began?
I've got the MPC to my right, the machine to my left, still using the MIDI keyboard to plug in the drums, but it is what it is. So let's clean up those drums. Let's replace those with some nicer sounds. Okay, so here's what I've got for my drums. Nice and simple. It's going to be all about the vocals in this track. So now what I want to do is add some piano to this, or a pad, or some kind of melodic instrument. I haven't really changed too much about the Kate vocal. All I've done is remove some of the breaths. Yes, I could use a de-esser, but if you can be kind of surgical, it's only a small loop. So it's easier for me to just slice out and delete those breaths. I've also applied some light glue compression to reduce some of those dynamics, bring up the floor level of the quiet dynamics. Now I've just EQ'd this a little bit nicer, as well as, check this out, this is a bit old school, but I've also rode the automation as well throughout the track. So some of those loud bits are just suppressed a little bit, and the quieter dynamics are brought up. This is so that the glue compressor doesn't take out all of the humanization in Kate's voice, and I can still control that. So anything that I do want to be a little bit louder, I've brought up with the automation. So let's add some keys. Okay, so I stuck to my rule of having an F major chord, then an E minor, and then this G diminished. As you can hear, I've already added the RC20, which is just adding a little bit of noise. We've got kind of a telephone EQ effect going on, some wobble, some distortion, some magnetic tape effects there. Our EQ is automated a little bit, so it's becoming a little bit more muffled in this mid region. And then the sidechain compressor. And as you probably heard just there, instead of just playing that F major, I've added the 7th on the top and then an octave of a couple of notes from the chord. So this just kind of breaks the chord open a little bit more interesting. So it's this versus this. With the G diminished, it's just a flat 5 here. So a nice jazzy kind of chord there, which I really like. So let's apply that to the vocal.
I'll give you one more chance. Don't make me ask again.
The vocal sounds a little bit more controlled. I've added a couple more things. Added Nectar 3. Nectar 3 is such a fantastic tool for controlling the vocals. I've added just a tiny bit of pitch correction, but you can see that the strength is only 20%, so the pitch correction isn't working very hard, and the speed is at 80 milliseconds, so it's relatively slow, set to our scale of F major. So it allows Kate's voice to just be a little bit more in keeping with the key of our song, but it's not sounding like an auto-tune like T-Pain vocal. We've got a little bit of EQ there, some slight de-essing as we mentioned before, some linear EQ, some compression, and I've turned the reverb off. And the reason for that is we're using 2 sends. I've got a send here with the Valhalla reverb on it, nothing else. And then this is my favorite thing. On the B return, I've got some delay. Check out this delay, it's quite fast.
Listen close, I'll give you one more chance.
I picked this technique up from my buddy Enzi. It essentially replicates that live gig environment. You imagine like a small jazz cafe, the reflection of the monitors coming back into the microphone and making it just sound more present in your vocal mix. So to suppress that feedback sound a little bit, I'm side chaining my lead vocal back into this B return with the delay on it. So anytime the vocal performs, it's just ducked ever so slightly. Anytime there's a lift in the vocal, we can have some of that delay come through. It just makes the vocal a little bit present, but it's very subtle. Nice technique to use.
Listen close, I'll give you one more chance.
Now the piano right now is really low in the mix because we're going to add more instruments to it. But the second instrument that I added was the bass. I've got this kind of analog sound going for the bass. Just a preset I found in Serum. Kind of had this Stranger Things sound. I didn't love it, so I took that cut off and turned it all the way down. So it's just now a thud. And you can see that I used the chords above from the piano to dictate where my bass notes were going to be. So you could see all of these grayed out regions. Just took all of the chords, pressed 0 on all of them to deactivate all of those notes, and then used the root note from each of the chords to then plug in what was going to be my bass note. And then after that, you need to decide how are you going to flavor this. So I just chopped up these little notes and then trialed those notes by going to the different grayed out chords. Does it work here? Does it work on this one? So on and so forth until I had notes that I was really happy with that sat with the vocal. Let's just try it with the vocal alone and see how it sits.
It's drawn when you're talking to me. I can read right between the lines. Call it a clever trait of mine.
And then let's try it with the piano as well. Notice how I made a little bit of a gap in this piano chord there and then rolled the next chord. Again, just generating something a little bit more interesting than the same loop once again. And speaking of just generating more interest with the drums, here in this, I wanted to add this little ride cymbal too. Just taking a live sample and just having that on a one-shot layer, panning that ever so slightly with a little bit of EQ, and that's it, keeping it really, really, really simple. So now basically all my elements are there, but I just need to flavor this with more melodic elements and make it sound like more of a finished piece. How nice is Kate's vocal? Like I said, she's got an album coming out. She's also on TikTok and produces brilliant content almost daily. So do check her out. Whilst we're speaking on content creators, this episode is sponsored by DistroKid, who truly do look out for DIY artists and upcoming content creators. And I think their platform is probably the easiest way to get your music heard on all of the musical formats and platforms. Instagram, TikTok, Apple Music, Spotify, you name it. I've spoken about them in all of my other videos because if you've used other distribution companies, I think once you find DistroKid, you won't want to go anywhere else. Let's carry on with the video. So check this out. There's a lot more melodies in this master group because as you can see with the glue compressor, I'm side chaining this to Kate's vocals. So it allows some breathing room and something that's been helping me reduce some of the muddy frequencies and carve out a little bit more space for vocals is Golfos as well. So we're using that with Kate's vocal too. So I'm starting off with that piano, haven't changed that. But I figured underneath we probably need just like a little bit of a pad to thicken up this layer because I think that piano is going to be my intro. So I've got this very quiet singular root note, side chained, rolled off with the EQ. And also this nice Serum patch, no RC20 on this one, EQ8 keeping it nice and low in the mix. Compressor, sidechain to the kick, and the Haas effect so it's nice and wide as well. After this, I wanted to generate a little bit more interest with melodies. So what I did was just copy up this chord layer and then quantize this to the quarter notes. And then just apply an arpeggiator. So without the arpeggiator, everything sounds like the piano chords. Just doing this with Ableton's analog, EQ8 here, transient master to take away some of those harsh frequencies, and sidechain with the kick as you can hear there as well. The arpeggiator just creates a little bit more interest. And this had to be more interesting and more audible as we went into the last half of the track. So all I did was just pitch this up an octave and then just apply 2 extra notes on the top of these chords here. It wasn't really cutting through the mix with the vocal, so I just applied this kind of kalimba preset as well. And that helps it, again, just be a little bit more audible in the track. And then just tidying up the arrangement by adding some extra harmonies, some melodic elements. And these melodic elements, I just kind of felt out and played on the keys. But as you can see in the piano roll, I was making sure that I was in keeping with that F major scale because my music theory isn't that brilliant. And then just as the icing on the cake, we've of course got some chimes, we've got a crash, and we've got some little swooshes of white noise. Nice and simple. So for me, it's all about listening to the track element by element, keep stripping it back to that vocal that you had first, because we want that to remain the focal element, and then just create an arrangement around that. I just created an introduction by copying the chords that we had at the beginning of the video, bringing them to the front with the pad, and then just shifting Kate's vocals forward 4 bars. Let me know what you think of this beat, guys, what you'd like to see in future videos. If you learned something new or enjoyed it, like, subscribe if you haven't already. Check this out.
Don't make me ask again. What did I say when things first began? Oh yes, please don't lie when you're talking to me. I can read right between the lines. Call it a clever trait of mine. The clock is ticking, you're running out of time. Let's hear your latest lie.
So there we have it, guys. How did you enjoy this episode of creating a jazzy lo-fi piece around a vocal? Or if you have any more questions about the process, if you made it this far, I truly appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell to get alerts, and give it a like because it truly helps out the growth of this channel. For now, guys, once again, I thank you and I'll see you next time.